On the 10th day of Christmas, my demo shared with me a window bag made from designer series paper. Can hold kisses, can hold anything you want, but let's get started. We're going to start with a piece of designer series paper. Now I had this 6 by 12 sheet left over. I only need something that measures 6 by 8 inches. So let me trim this down. And what's nice is I have this 4-inch wide piece, which is a great size for a card front layer. Now that I've got that cut, I'm also going to need a piece of window sheet. I'm going to cut that while I've got my trimmer out. This is the window I'm cutting. And I know that my box or my bag is going to be 2.5 inches wide. So I'm going to make a 2 1/4 inch square of window sheet. And that should be able to, this is going to be very difficult to show you, but you can see that there's layering all the way around there, okay? There's enough room to put some tear and tape. And in fact, I'm going to put the tear and tape right now because it will make this piece easier to find on my desk. You really need to keep track of your window sheets. They disappear on your desk very easily. So I'm putting this tear and tape right up against the edge. Okay, good. I'm going to set that aside. I can find it easily because it's got the tape on it. I'm going to bring in my Simply Scored tool, which is what I prefer when I'm making boxes and bags. Bring in my stylus. On the long side, so with this 8-inch side against the top of the ruler, across from the stylus holder, I'm going to score at 1/2 inch. And remember, when you're scoring here, you don't want to press too hard because you'll find that it may tear your paper. 1/2 inch, 3 inches, 4 1/4, 6 3/4. And I'm going to rotate it a 1/4 turn and score at 4 3/4. So you can make this bag smaller. If you're going to be making a window, you probably can't make it a wider or a taller bag because it needs to fit through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. But when you're adjusting measurements, you want to make sure that the sides of the bag are the same width as the bottom of the bag. So the bottom of the bag was 1 1/4, and so are these two sides. The front and the back can be any length, but those sides have to match the bottom measurement. To make this a little bit easier to see, I'm going to go ahead and burnish all the score lines. Okay. Let's see, I did that. All right. And on this sheet, there is one little old rectangle down here. Actually, it's right down here. I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to miter that edge just a little bit. Now I can, on these little tabs right here, I'm going to cut down the score line. And miter the edge. I'm going to cut down the score line and miter, but I'm mitering that inside flap, so the small one. The other way you can do it is, if you don't like to do that mitering thing, you can cut off the score line. So the score line really has a width to it. So if you just cut ever so slightly on the left and on the right of it, you're in effect cutting off that score line, and that works as well. It really makes making the template a lot easier if I do it this way. We're going to put adhesive on this tab. Right near the score line. And then we have to put adhesive on the bottom pieces. You don't need a lot on these tabs. I just like to put a little bit on them just to hold the tabs down to the bottom of the box. And when we're putting this bag together, see where this seam is? That points to the back of the box. So that means this will be the front of the box. And when you have the front of the box, this flap goes down last. So we don't need adhesive on that. We want adhesive on this one right here. So I will lay my adhesive on both of the long ends over here. Turn it around, make it easier. Okay. The last thing we need to do is cut the window out. I'm going to bring my Stampin' Cut and Emboss. And I am using this die from the Tasteful Labels die, which is one of my favorite sets. So I'll need my plates, my number 1, my number 2, my number 3. And then I need to remember which, this untaped side, that's where I'm going to be putting my die. Now, I don't want to actually fold my paper over because it will cut all the way through. And that means it's going to cut through part of a side and part of the back. So I'm just going to line it up here and figure out where it goes. Then I'm going to unfold the pieces, lay them on my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and put the other plate, the other number 3 plate, over the top. So you can see that the 6-inch width is the perfect width to go through here. You don't want anything bigger than that. Now, if you have a punch, it is possible that you might be able to punch out a window instead of die cut. However, a couple things to watch for. You may have to alter the length of this tab. You might need to make it 3/8 of an inch. You may need to make this narrower so that it gets into the center. You just have to play around with it. But honestly, it's easiest just to use a die, and you can get some pretty nice designs with a die. Now I'm going to take my window sheet. Now let's go ahead and get the backings off my tear and tape. And I try to keep my fingers off the center as much as possible. This is the side I want on the outside. I'm just going to put this in here, making sure that my tear and tape doesn't go over the edge. You might even be able to cut this a little bit bigger so you're not quite as tight there. But there we go. There's our window. Looks great. Let's go ahead and remove this piece of tear and tape. If you turn it so that it's right side down, fold in the tab and fold the other part in half. This will line up nicely. Look at how perfect that is. Then you can take the other pieces of tear and tape off. I'm probably going to have to do this one. Just be careful I'm not laying down this side because that's got the tear and tape on it. can take, obviously, the tear and tape off everything first, the backing. I'm going to fold my two ends in, then my back, and then the front flap goes forward, and there is my bag. I can put some Hershey's Kisses inside. I probably need a little bit more in here, but I don't have more, so we're just gonna have to go with this. And then we can close this, and you can close this a number of different ways. You can use a decorative clip to close it and then just decorate that clip. You can certainly take a hole punch. Yeah, let's see if I can get my hole punch in here to punch some holes. Punch a couple holes about the same distance from each side. Let's take some, let's bring in some of this beautiful open weave evening evergreen ribbon. If you're having trouble poking it through, you can just take your stylus. Actually, I'm going to poke it through from this side. And that grabs that through. And we just need to bring it through the back the other way. And I like to press on, not this open weave part, but the edge, just because there's a little bit more strength there. We can tie a bow. I hate tying bows on camera. I don't really mind tying bows in general, but definitely on camera. All right, now I can cut it and I can play with it. Just play with the ends to make them go where I want them to go. Some people like to tie their bows upside down. Seems no matter which way I do it, my ends kind of go every which way. So, and what I can usually do is come back to it after it's had a chance to, you know, forget about being on the roll and curling up. But there's our little box. We can add a tag. So here's a little tag punch, and it has a bunch of different widths in there. I'm going to use a 3/4 of an inch width. I'm just going to cut a small piece here. Oops, 3/4 of an inch. Here's 3/4 of an inch. And I just decide which one I want to go with, and let's go with this one. And I put that in the punch as far as it'll go. I tend to look over at the back side, just make sure the top is evenly aligned. Trim that off. Take my hole punch again. You can also, my mat, this is a mouse pad, like a giant mouse pad, so that's why I can poke through it. And I can poke, make it a little bit bigger there. All right. And I can stamp a to and a from on there. I can attach it with some of this baker's twine. This baker's twine is the Essentials pack. It comes in lots of different colors, but all neutral. There we go. I do need to stamp on this first, don't I? Yeah, I should stamp on this first. In my Tidings and Trimmings set. I have a to and a from, but I can do season's greetings. I can do anything I really want to here. But let's just do to and from. It's a little gift. To and from. Put this on a block, and I think we need to go with Evening Evergreen for the ink. There we go. Now, here's a little secret. You want to just sort of make this coordinate a little bit better with the bag. Take this little tab that you cut off and take a little adhesive, pour it down the edge, just a thin line. Make sure you have enough room to write to and from, who it's to and from. And you can just trim this off the back. So I made a coordinating tag very simply using a scrap. Isn't that cute? And then we can just tie it right on here. I'd probably want to fill it out first. It'd be easier writing than when it's on the bag. But for purposes of the video, I didn't need this much twine, did I? There we go. So now we have a little bag filled with Hershey's Kisses, or almost filled with Hershey's Kisses. But you can fill it with anything. You can buy the packs of Hershey's Kisses that are colorful. The white and the green ones would go nicely in here if you separated those out, or silver. But there we go. And that is the 10th day of Christmas.